Well, folks, it's time to look at some more Battlegrounds Buddies. It's taken me a couple days to close the thread on this one while doing dual stuff and patch notes stuff, but I wanted to make sure we circled back and took a look at all the remaining buddies that were revealed a couple days ago. This will be part review, part recap, pretty high level look at these, more just to showcase them than anything else. So that said, let's kick it off here with Rat King and Pigeon Lord. I love this dude. Tier 2 buddy, so pretty fast one. Your refreshes cost 0, while Bob's Tavern doesn't have the minion type of your hero power. So that cursed world where you can never seem to find the right minions for Rat King. If this guy's on board, you could at least cycle through until you find that one to buy. And this one's intriguing. I feel like I kind of need to see it in action because I do feel like it could just be a way to get free refreshes for even just like a turn or two while you kind of plop this guy down and wait to find the right sort of stuff. So even if you're not using it to enable Rat King's hero power specifically, just, you know, increasing your ability to refresh and find the build around or the triple or whatever it is you're looking for in the shop might actually offer some significant utility. I just don't know how often it's going to hit or whiff. Like, it might be bad that you actually find the minion type of your hero power because you might want free refreshes instead. So there's kind of some upside, kind of some downside. But it does have that intriguing like free money potential for a while, which if you get on a good roll could actually be better than enabling the hero power. Moving on over here to Dagwick Sticky Toe for Captain Eudora. He is a tier 3 buddy, so middle speed there. And at the end of your turn, give a random friendly golden minion +5/+5. So of course with Eudora, you're getting that golden minion. And this, of course, can buff it up. And it's fairly fast scaling for a single buff, but not that fast, right? If you think about Pirate Golden Boy who scales, right? He's getting +2/+2 per golden. Sometimes that gets up pretty quickly to 6/6, 8/8, and so on, especially in pirate builds these days with Tony Two Tusk. Whereas this, you know, you're kind of gaining 5/5 and says, but you're sacrificing this position on board as well. So, you know, it could be a short term, like I just got to fill this board spot, maybe take 10/10 off this guy. I don't know if you're really going to be able to commit to this long term. Plus, particularly with Eudora, the golden minion you get is like random. So it may not be anything that's really worth a buff or something you want to commit to long term. You might just want to be tripling into it. So there might be moments where this feels like it's kind of wasted, where you're buffing something that you were going to sell immediately, or there's no golden minion on board because you sold that golden, and so on and so forth. So I think this is just awkward and not quite scaling quick enough. All right, moving over to Cariel here, we have Captain Fairmount, and she's going to give 3 random friendly minions +1/+1 at the end of turn. So this kind of universal small scaling buff, essentially. I think it's going to take way too long for that to stack up to feel good. That's, you know, basically a mug every turn. And like, yeah, it's fine to play a mug sometimes. And like, yeah, it doesn't have to be type based for this one, but it's just not a lot of raw stats. And like, yeah, she's a 7/5, that's okay. But again, like, how long are you really going to be willing to sit on this one? And even the golden version's like a light fang. Again, of course, not minion type restricted, but it just doesn't feel like it has enough output here to really be significant, either honestly short term or long term. Like, I like Dagwick because at least you get like kind of one turn with like a nice big chunk of buffs. This one takes even longer to get the same amount of stats. Moving on to Chinvala here, we have Snow Elemental. That no hate, but that's like the most boring name ever. It's kind of funny compared to how creative and awesome the rest of these are, but it works. Tier 2 buddy, so pretty fast. Bob always offers an extra frozen elemental whenever the tavern is refreshed, and I don't know, I think there's actually a lot of potential here. I have like way better results with Chinvala than like the average stats. I think most people like lower the stats by hard rolling too much for elementals. You can kind of play it normal and just take a couple tier ups occasionally when you find elementals. This adding to that consistency as a tier 2 quick buddy, to me, feels pretty good. And then, of course, you know, we've seen Ysera succeed with specific sorts of builds with Terracosa and stuff. This could have a similar world where if you find the right sort of bracket of elementals, tier 3s and tier 4s and stuff, maybe you can build some pretty nuts stuff with refreshes or Dazzling Light Spawn in particular, increasing consistency there. So it is a board spot commitment. Might be hard to scale up compared to the rest of your elementals. So it could feel like a risk, but if you tier up fast enough, it may not matter. Next up is Galakron. I have no idea if I reviewed this. I feel like I already reviewed this, but maybe it was Flurgle who has a similar effect. Either way, here's Galakron again, or for the first time. This is Apostle of Galakron. Tier 3, replace minions in Bob's Tavern with ones of a higher tavern tier. And this reminds me of that like old Dark Moon prize effect that did the same thing that I always thought was like a little underrated. I thought like, get a nice board of, 2 or 3 tier 4s, or maybe, if you're do some 4s and 5s, a mix, and play that, and you get some pretty good build rounds usually. Get that nice key tier 5 or tier 6. This could do the same thing. And, so I like that. Like, wait for that key moment, drop this, hit that nice big thing to move your game plan forward. And then if you do keep this for the golden version, going up twice could be really cool, pushing from like 4s to 6s and stuff. You could get yourself a really nice shop in that case. So, I like the Battlecry Buddies in general a little better, and I think this one does indeed have some potential. Next up is Carl the Lost here for George. George and Carl reunited. I love it. He is a tier 3 buddy. After you use your hero power, give your Divine Shield minions +2 attack, or of course +4 on the golden. And I kind of don't hate this. Like, we've already seen George succeed really well in the Divine Shield Quillbore build when you pump up that tier 4 Quillbore that gives everything a lot of attack. And although, this is clearly not going to get as big as quickly as that, this is also permanent. So, you're kind of growing things over time. 3 or 4 turns later, suddenly, you've got 8 attack. Maybe you get a couple +4s after that too. It's like, okay, my Divine Shield board's actually pretty darn threatening. And he is also going to give himself plus attack, right? So Carl the Lost is going to scale with you. You can keep him on board. It's not your other friendly minions. It's just your minions. So I think that also helps keep Carl around, and he kind of starts with the high attack value too. So as soon as you Divine Shield this guy, he's already a 9/4 Divine Shield, which that's not too bad in the mid game. Like, that's something that you can roll with. So I kind of think Carl the Lost might give you a reliable way to do that sort of Quillbore thing, a little slower, a little less high, velocity, I guess, but longer term, which could be cool. For Illidan here, we have the Eclipsion Illidari, tier 2 Wingman, which is, of course, Illidan's hero power. Also gives immune while attacking for 1 attack only. And then if you golden it, that's actually for 2 attacks, which, sometimes things die defensively. That's not that likely to go off multiple times, but still interesting. And that's actually not bad, I think. Number one, like, often you've got like big key things using the effect, some kind of like Death Rattle Activator, Wind Fury, Cleave, whatever it is, right? Something that's doing something really cool. And those are minions you might like to invest in a lot, and keep giving them immune while attacking is theoretically giving them like a Divine Shield, basically. They're getting a free attack. And 2 Divine Shields is a big deal. Like, that's actually really awesome. So, it's kind of like a selfless hero almost you can keep around, and it might be good enough actually to keep around long term. And if you push it golden, like, that's sometimes an extra Divine Shield on occasion. So I wouldn't sleep on this one. It's kind of boring, kind of like, but Divine Shields are good. Immune is essentially Divine Shield in this case, just protecting from any return damage, which might be really nice. Moving on to the Wandering Treant here for Greybough, tier 3. Whenever you summon a taunt minion, give it +2/+2, of course, to synergize with Greybow's hero power. Whenever a token gets summoned, it gets taunt, and presumably this will buff it additionally +2/+2. I don't know if that's gonna actually be enough. It's not really the repetitive stats and summoning off Greybough that makes Greybough interesting. It's typically the ability to proc Avenge for some other sort of scaling or value generation. And like, this isn't going to help you really achieve that any extra. In fact, sometimes it could limit you because your stuff might be less likely to die. But still sometimes you might want to take a few turns of tempo, just drop this in the mid game, make sure you're not falling too far behind while milking and generating that Avenge value. This could help you sort of shore up a weaker board in that scenario. So maybe for a short-term fill, this card makes a little sense. For Jandis here, we have the Jandis Apprentice, tier 3. After you swap minions, give them stats equal to your Tavern tier. So, if you're tier 4, the 2 minions you swap are each going to get presumably +4/+4, or doubled up if you manage to keep this around long enough to golden it. The fact that they both get the stats is kind of cool, but often you're selling the one you swap into. You're not typically keeping it around all that often. So those stats don't usually count much, but the extra stats on the thing that you're getting multiple times, like, you're really going to start stacking it up. And that may not matter as much on Amalgadons or something where you're looking for, just that poisonous and Divine Shield, kind of keep it in a healthy spot. But, in the mid game in particular, other minions just in a pinch where you're swapping, a mug or something, and it comes back as a 7/7 and then 11/11. It kind of helps you keep up for tempo. So that said, you're sacrificing a board spot for this 4/4. So there will be scenarios where this probably makes sense for a while, and then I suspect in most late game builds, of course, it'll get ditched pretty quickly, where even like full 6/6 buffs won't be quick enough to be relevant for the Janda's Apprentice to stick around that long. Moving on to Kael'thas, it's the Crimson Hand Centurion, a tier 4 buddy, so a little bit slower here. After Verdant Spears triggers, give your hand and board +1/+1. So every third minion you buy, you're getting both a hand buff, which, you know, is to buff the thing that you just bought, essentially, maybe a few other extra things on occasion, of course, and then a +1/+1 buff to your board. And, you know, that can add up fairly quickly. That's kind of similar to a Calicos style effect, if you think about it, right? Because you're buying these battle cries. Now, that said, you know, usually you're getting 3 per turn with Caligos, or 4 or 5, of course, depending on, you know, what you get. Whereas in this case, you're probably getting like 1 or maybe 2 per turn, so much slower. But, you know, it's of course guaranteed. It's going to be there for you. That said, you know, I'm worried it's just a little bit too slow. If you get the right build, like a pirate cycle build, where you're buying a ton of pirates, of course, this could be a way to push your board even harder. You know, we already have like Peggy doing that to some extent, but not an entire board, right? It's just a minion at a time. But this is only every 3 minions, and Peggy's doing it every minion. So again, it kind of starts to level itself out. So, you know, it's possible in the right scenario, but I think only in pirate build, and it's maybe already got a better, more reliable way to do that. So I'm not sure if Crimson Hand Centurion is going to really accelerate you quickly enough. But again, you know, for a turn or two, maybe where it lines up for a free +2/+2 or something, it makes sense. For Lich Bazial, we have the Unearthed Underling, tier 3, 4/4. Whenever your hero would take damage, this minion gains +2/+2 instead. First off, this guy looks so freaking cool. It's like a mummy minotaur, which is baller. I love the look at this dude. And I actually think the minion's kind of cool too. There's 2 upsides, of course. Number 1 is this scales. So every time you hit your hero power, you're getting +2/+2. This guy's getting bigger with you. Also, saving you health. Basically, you know, much like Immune Demon guy in a Wrathweaver build, Unearthed Underling is protecting your health total. So you can hero power, gain that gold advantage without risking losing life. Now, I've found a lot of success with Lich here lately, honestly. Like, the gold advantage is so enormous, especially she has so much armor all the time, that you can probably push anyway. Don't have to worry about your life total too much because you're just getting so far ahead on economy. But this could help you do that even more, and it's scaling with you as well. And if you get this in combination with Wrathweaver, of course, you're going to scale like mad, basically, because the Wrathweavers are going to go off. They would do damage to you. This is going to take it instead. It's going to scale alongside the Wrathweavers. Like, you could have a crazy demon build in this. So that actually is like an extra Wrathweaver to get you really big, really fast, which I think will be probably very good. Moving on to Barov here, we have Barov's Apprentice. After you play a gold coin, gain 1 gold this turn only. And the tier 2 buddy here, this is like crazy to me at high levels of play. Barov is already one of the best high tier heroes because number 1, good players are very good at predicting Barov results, especially so in high tier lobbies where results are much more predictable because people are behaving in very optimized ways, so you can understand who's tiering up, who's buying what, who's doing this, and make great, reliable predictions, making Barov very good at high tier lobbies. A little worse at lower tier lobbies because people do weird things you can't predict sometimes, like, why'd they tier up there? What are they doing? That's insane. Or, you know, why don't they have 3 minions right now? That sort of stuff. They rolled 3 times instead of buying something? That sort of stuff, right? Makes it harder in lower tier lobbies. But it's just, you know, it's more economy, more fuel, which great players already utilize to great success. So you're going to have some monster power turns, you know, where keep this around and it's just free money, especially if you gold in it. It's so much money, which helps you accelerate into late game and finalize builds very quickly. So I actually think Barov's Apprentice will be nuts. High level play, probably not as good in low level play because it's going to be stuck on board and you're not going to be getting gold as reliably. Jiraxis has Kill Wreck here, tier 3 buddy with Taunt and Death Rattle, add a random demon to your hand. So in a vacuum, I think this card's actually really good. It's basically a lot of value. It's potentially, you know, demon, taunt, avenge setup, juggler setup. There's a lot of upsides to this for things that Jaraxxus and demons already want to do. That said, I don't think it's going to be good enough to change Jaraxxus's fate. I think Jaraxxus will still be a hero that's a little bit too restricted for build focus, and the stat upside of Jaraxxus hero power isn't going to change. So cool minion. A lot of people would like to use this. It would be cool if you could just grab this in a demon build, but not enough to pull Jaraxxus out of the bottom tier. For Master Win here, we have Lay Flamepaw, tier 2, buddy, very quick. Power of the Storm offers 3 options instead of 2. That's super cool, by the way. This is already like one of the most fun heroes in Battlegrounds, and getting more choices to do more cool things is very fun. It's super hard for me to like guess how powerful this is going to be. I don't know numerically like how it's going to handle things like rare hero powers like Renos, that sort of stuff. So hard to estimate exactly how much better this makes your average hero power, essentially, but it's going to make it way more fun. The golden version giving you 4 options again, like I just don't know. It's almost too much to really figure out. I mean, I feel like I always have a hero power that's halfway decent, or well, not always. I'd say like 70% of the time I have a hero power I'm like okay to take. So if this does shore up that other 30% and makes like every turn feel like you're getting a great hero power, and you also are able to get those crazy high roll hero powers on occasion more often, then this might be worth holding on to for at least a few turns. But it's just really hard to envision this one. For Maleficent here, we have the Elementium Squirrel Bomb, a tier 3 death threat will deal 4 damage to a enemy minion, and repeat for each of your mechs that died this combat. So some crazy microbot synergy here. If you're trading in a lot of little mechs, when this goes off, it's going to be just a big old bomb. I mean, you could easily envision 6, 8, 10 bombs off some microbot procs and stuff. And that's quite a bit of damage in and of itself. So I think this is pretty high tempo, and you're going to be building for mechs with Maleficent. It's pretty much always going to be the case. And then of course, doubling effects, Barovs and stuff, make this, or not Barovs, Baron Rivendares, excuse me, make this completely insane potential. Now Maleficent, as another Jaraxxus type hero with a specific type, like I don't know if this will be enough to make her competitive, because when you're just really hammered into a type, that restriction is so hard to be competitive. But when it works, I think it's going to work really well. So you're going to have like, I think, a really variable success rate for Maleficent. Like her first places might increase, or maybe not actually first places still, but like her second places might dramatically increase, but you're still going to have plenty of those like low results as well, where you just don't hit the consistent mech stuff. For Mutanus, we have Nightmare Ectoplasm, tier 3. When you devour this, spit its stats onto 2 extra minions. So this is kind of cool, right? Like you can maybe stack this guy up for a while by devouring other stuff, hoping to hit this guy to get him bigger and bigger, maybe buff him in some other ways. Might be hard as a non-typed minion, but possible. And then like once he's gotten sufficiently large, then you devour him essentially, and like boom, your board is ginormous because you've multiplied those stats multiple times. And actually goldening this one might just make sense, because if you wait, like if you play each of these individually, it might be harder to buff them, but if you golden it after it's already been buffed a bunch, stack those stats into the golden, then you multiply it 4 times instead of only 2. So I think this is interesting for sure. I'm curious how people are going to be able to, how often people are going to be able to hit this minion with stats and then multiply it to great effect. For Sourfang here, we have Dranosh Sourfang, tier 4. For the Horde, the hero power also grants health. So, instead of getting +5 attack, you're going to get +5/+5. I'm not convinced this is actually still going to be great. Sourfang's not terrible. He's actually maybe a little underrated by most people's opinions. If you look at the data, he's kind of middle tier. But I don't really think this changes that much. I think, usually you're able to better leverage the attack buff than you would be a health buff, because Divine Shield straight up better, Cleave, so on and so forth. And you also got to commit to this guy on board to make that, happen for multiple turns. So, again, of course, all these can fill in for a turn or two, get a buff here and there, but I don't think this makes Sourfang suddenly amazing or anything like that, or this is a minion you commit to long term. All right, next up here for Pyramid, we have the Titanic Guardian, a tier 3 6/2. Whenever a different friendly minion gains health, this gains it too. So, of course, supporting Pyramid's hero power, you get +4 on something else, you get +4 on this guy, but also any other health buff you might be able to get, whether that's a jug or whatever else. This guy's going to start gaining some health. But I it's only gonna have 6 attack, you know. It's like it's gonna be hard to get the attack on this guy up, which is just not gonna scale well at all. Pyramid's already really bad, and I do not think this changes that at all. It's just not threatening in any sort of way. For Ragnaros here, this one seems so cool. It's Lucifron, tier 4, old OG artwork here too. Your end of turn effects trigger twice or 3 times with the golden version. And of course, Ragnaros' hero power has end of turn effect buffing the outside minions, but that's not all, right? There's a lot of other end of turn sort of effects in Battlegrounds. So I'm very intrigued how this one's going to do that. Like, it's already worth +3/+3 every turn on outside minions. That alone is not great, but you start adding in like even a Light Fang, right? Like, is this the return of Light Fang? Can Light Fang actually be good in a Lucifron build? Because it's like doubling it up, or a golden Light Fang, for God's sake. That sounds pretty amazing. Oh, even Major Domo actually could be cool. I think Major Domo is super underrated. You could do some crazy Major Domo cycling stuff. Charlga's really good. Oh man, Charlga would be fun. Mithrax could scale faster. There's a lot of cool stuff, actually. I'm very, very intrigued by this one. It may not be fast enough, but I definitely want to try it. Lantern Tender here for Rakanishu, tier 3. At the end of your turn, give a random friendly minion stats equal to your tavern tier. So taking Rakanishu's hero power and just putting it on a minion here. Only you could use this with Lucifron, right? So this is basically like a +5/+5 to a random minion every turn. If you're, you know, at tier 5, of course, a little less, a little more here and there. It's not enough, again, I don't think. I just don't think it keeps up quickly enough. Random minions too, you might hit something you're not planning to commit to long term. It's just kind of a gap fill, but not an especially strong one with a pretty weak stat line. And tier 3 is not the fastest start for it either. You know, golding in it, it's like it starts, you get tier 6 golden version of this. It's like, okay, 12/12 is not bad, but it's still just a single minion. I might rather disperse those stats a little more or have some control over that buff. I just don't think it's going to scale fast enough because it's still just going to be a 6/10 itself. So probably not strong enough. Moving on to Scabs here with Warden Fellwater. At the start of your turn, add your next opponent's buddy to your hand. And Golden one, of course, adding 2 of your next opponent's buddy to your hand. Scab's already amazing, really strong, of course. Picking your opponent's cards is great. I think the average buddy is not necessarily perfect. Some of them have amazing battle cries, so on occasion this guy could be bonkers good with just some like broken battle cry. There's also like some insane recursive loops and stuff that are possible, like refreshing your hero power, all these sorts of things that you could maybe do by taking other people's buddies. I do think your average result, though, like some of them aren't going to do anything because they're like coded to specific hero powers, like Illidan's or whatever, right? We saw earlier wouldn't do anything because it cites the hero power you don't have. So you know, it's 1 gold at the very least, right? Like you get a gold for free every turn, which isn't awful. Sometimes it's game breaking though. So will it be worth hanging around to like find that key opponent? Like I need to find exactly Lucifron, and then this is actually not an end of turn effect, so that would help. So Lucifron's a bad example, but I need to find this exact key buddy, and that's going to be amazing. So I'm going to hold Warden until then, whether on board or not, right? It might be good enough just in that case where you take that one amazing turn, but then again, you actually can't predict that, can you? You don't really know who you're going to be facing in a future turn because it's start of turn. So you'd have to play this down while fighting like Ragnaros or whatever, and then hope to roll into the strong hero power the next turn because it's start of turn. So even the predictability here is a little tough. It might still be worth it just for the gold and the high roll potential, but it may have to get sacrificed quicker rather than later. All right, for Shutterwalk here, we have the Muckslinger, tier 2/5/3. After you play a minion, add a random battlecry minion to Bob's Tavern. I almost said Tobbs Bavern. So a great way to get some battle cries. If you stay at tier 1 here and are able to farm tokens for Shutterwalk, this might actually be kind of nuts. Like the like crazy greed Shutterwalk, you know, tier 1, find a bunch of tokens, summon a bunch of gold minions and get crazy results. Could be more possible with this. I don't play that build a ton. I've seen people do it to great success. I don't know how exactly the buddies are going to work. Like if you'll be able to stay at tier 1 pretty successfully and still get some progress done. Since it's high tempo, I think you should be able to fairly well in that case. So might be nuts on a tier 1 build. For later in the game, I'm less convinced this is going to be super relevant. I think Shutterwalk's more about those power spikes as opposed to sort of long-term consistency. So that's my expectation. All right, for Silas here, we have his buddy Birth. Tier 3, 3/6. After you buy a minion with a Dark Moon ticket, gain 1 gold this turn only. This is intriguing. I mean, this is theoretically a 2 to 3 gold per turn. Could help you really accelerate just buying a bunch of easy, beneficial like Battle Cry or token Dark Moon tickets, and it makes them like free basically. For instance, if you buy a token or economy unit, you get a Murloc, you sell 2 of them, you get the gold here, that was free, and you get a ticket activation to help you push ticket completions. So, I think in the right economy lobby with Murloc's Beast, maybe Elementals, this could make more sense. Outside of that, sometimes I wonder if this is just going to be too big of a commitment on board again to really pay off fast enough. That 1 gold limit, how many times is that going to line up successfully to keep this 3/6 around? I'm not sure it's going to line up often, but on occasion, this might be kind of nuts. For Sneeds, we have the piloted Whirlotron, a tier 3, 5/4 Battlecry. Copy a friendly minion's death rattles. So, of course, hero power stuff with Sneed and copy it. And this has summon a bunch of tier 6 minions when it dies. I think there is limited utility actually in the hero power use case here. There's just always that board space restriction in Battlegrounds where these multi-summon death rattles have trouble actually scaling to great effect. Things have to line up very well often for that to work. And this kind of doubles down on that, right? By making like a multiple things that all summon a bunch of things. Now that said, outside of that though, there are still, I think, use cases where it's like, have a Goldrin, get an extra Goldrin, right? This isn't a beast, but it could just be an extra golden. And if you get a golden one of these, that's even more Goldrin. So in scenarios where you have specific death rattle use cases, and I guess Omega Dude for mechs is even a better example, perhaps, since this is itself a mech, you might be able to create some real shenanigans with this one. So weirdly, despite this being intended for its hero power, I think it's going to be less relevant for the hero power and more relevant for late game, like finishing potential on big death rattles. That said, will Sneed even get there since there's a nerf? Sneed is, of course, notably weaker. Akazamzarak here has the Street Magician death rattle put a random secret into the battlefield. And of course, some questions on this one regarding the secrets. I'm pretty certain you will not be getting ice blocks off of this if you don't already have an ice block. That's not going to be the use case here. If they let that happen, like, yeah, of course this could be busted, but I don't think that'll often be the case. I suspect you're still going to be limited to 1 ice block per game. So the question is the rest of the secret pool good enough? I mean, the secrets in late game that matter most are Poisonous Dude and Divine Shield thingy. Summon a copy, I guess, sometimes can be, that might be harder with this one around because, it's maybe harder to control exactly what's going to get procced, because this has already died. Maybe you got some tokens or damaged minions laying around, right? So I think that one could be less impactful. But a well-timed Divine Shield is worth it if this becomes like a selfless hero. If this summons my Exena Light, that could indeed be worth it. The golden one in particular. If you've got like, if you're getting competitive spirits and stuff, the more kind of early game scaling secrets as opposed to the late game finisher secrets, like this is not going to hold up if you're just getting like Avenge or random snakes or whatever, which I'm afraid is what's going to happen most of the time. So again, mid game board filler, a little bit of extra value here and there, yes. Late game piece, maybe, but I kind of doubt it. It's just going to be too inconsistent, I bet. And then the greatest card to ever exist in Hearthstone, Baby Arphis. It's a tier 2 for Lich King. It's got a reboard, and your other reboard minion summon an extra copy after dying. So, of course, hero power stuff gets an extra copy. Again, always board space restrictions, these sort of things. It can be tough sometimes to fit all this together. But yet again, in a key unit scenario, if you've got that Goldrin and you give it reborn, and you have board space for it when it dies, like getting 2 extra Goldens or Golden Goldrins or Omega Busters, whatever it is, can be absolutely bonkers. You just have to keep your Arphis around on board. And, in the Golden world, may not be a problem because it's a beast, right? It's got some synergies there. Outside of that, might be tough. So is this limited specifically to beast builds? Perhaps. Is it a good filler in the mid game? Yes, actually, I think it is because, you don't have a full board maybe when you get this, since it's a tier 2, it comes along pretty quickly. That could really help you gain some quick tempo before you kind of ditch the Arthas, which is super sad. I'll never be able to sell this good boy. But I like that this does have that dual utility. If you see the beast build coming along, it's like, man, okay, we're going to go beast. We're going to keep Arthas. Otherwise, you might have to get rid of him halfway through. All right, next up is the Thawed Champion for Sindragosa, tier 3. At the end of your turn, add a random frozen minion from Bob's Tavern to your hand. Actually pretty cool, right? Like, this is just a way to get a unit very affordably. It's just grabbing it for you, and with Sindragosa's hero power, you can choose the unit that you want that's buffed. If you golden this, you get 2 frozen units as well. They're all going to be buffed off Sindragosa's hero power. So this is like a pretty nice value engine, it feels like. And 5/7's okay to keep around for a while too. 10, 14, I think you keep that around for a while as well if you golden it. So I like this one actually. I think Sindragosa is another underrated hero. I always seem to find a lot of success with Sindragosa just farming that tempo on those free stats and then allowing you to tier up much faster and find a build really quickly. I think this helps that. This is kind of in the Avenge meta mindset of like, give me stuff, right? And it's like even more targeted and controlled in some ways. So I think this could be really nice. For Gallywix here, we have Bilgewater Mogul. This guy's name is Gallywix, right? I'm having a brain fart here. Yeah, Trade Prince Gallywix. Bilgewater Mogul is a 6/3 battle cry. Give a minion +1/+1 for each gold spent this turn. This is really intriguing, right? Because of course you can get some pretty crazy gold turns rolling with the Gallywix, especially if you go into a pirate build, of course, where this could be just a bonkers big battle cry. I mean, this easily could be 20/20 plus in those sorts of turns, or by God, even way more than that. This would be 50/50 plus, making it, a nice one-time buff. And you're going to get 3 of these throughout the course of the game. Like, that's a lot of stats. Even if you don't have the perfect pirate world, like, this is just kind of like a free 10/10 buff, and then ditch it for some gold along the way too. So Mogul makes a lot of sense for Gallywix. Already a pretty solid hero. I see a lot of potential here. And then Sklib for Arana here. I'm so happy to see Sklib come back. I haven't seen him since Arana's story there. Tier 3. After you play a minion, your next refresh costs 0. So this is basically the tier 4 elemental dude, but for any minion. And I actually think it's kind of nuts. It's not going to be good for activating Arana's hero power, I suspect. Like, you're probably already going to kind of be mostly done with that at some point. But in a late game build, just getting free refreshes cycled, like, imagine this with like a Calicos or something, right? Where you're just getting to find battle cries, trade them off. Like, you're going to be very gold efficient in that scenario. Pirates, any kind of cycle build. Yeah, it's nice. Will you be able to keep it around? It's 5/4. Like, is it too much sacrifice on board? Maybe, but I like that elemental build. Now, that said, of course, elemental builds do get like immediate power off that via either Nomi or, of course, Major Domo can do the same thing where the cycling rewards you quite immediately with stats. I think you'll need the same payoff very often for this guy. So whether that's the Peggies or the Calicos I talked about, like, you're going to need something to make it worth it. But in that scenario, this could be quite a bit of money. And yeah, there you go. That wraps it up for our final piece of the Battlegrounds review. I am actually super stoked to play all these minions. They look so fun. The early access stuff we saw for them looked really cool. I have no idea what the meta is going to be like, but we're definitely going to give all these a shot. And the great thing about this is it's going to be easy to make videos because any hero you play is going to have cool new content. You don't have to like get the new hero or the new thing. So very excited to jump into these next week. Still be focusing primarily on duels for most of the stream, but we will definitely do probably 4 or 5 Battlegrounds matches at the end of a stream as well, because this looks really, really cool. That said, of course, share your thoughts on all these cards in the comments below, what you're most excited to play, what you think is going to be the most busted. Curious to hear all of that. Thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.